All right, guys, before we get started today, a big thank you to our partner, Microsoft Surface, celebrating 10 years of partnership with the NFL. As the official laptop, tablet, and sideline technology provider for the LA Chargers, Microsoft Surface provides players and coaches with the tools to succeed both on and off the field every day. Learn more about Surface at surface.com. And welcome into the final drive after the Chargers lose 38-10 to the Jacksonville Jaguars at SoFi Stadium. As always, joined by Hayley Elwood and senior writer Eric Smith. And guys, I figured I just set you up with the facts from yesterday. Really no positives from this game. You lose 38-10. Your quarterback guts it out. The Jacksonville Jaguar offense ran 75 plays. They were on the field for 38 and a half minutes. The Chargers offense could not get anything going. 26 yards on the ground. I believe Austin Ekeler had 33 total yards in the game. And your quarterback was hurt. And the one touchdown they had, it was a 75-yard drive. All 75 yards came from the arm of Justin Herbert. There was a lot of discussion after the game as to whether he should have been taken out with 5 minutes left in the game. There were a ton of injuries in this game. Rashawn Slater, Joey Bosa, Jalen Guyton, Kenneth Murray, who I believe returned to the game. And that's on top of the injuries that they already have to Corey Linsley and Keenan Allen and J.C. Jackson. So it's been a rough 3 weeks for this team. And I think that this score took everybody by surprise. Hayley, I'll start with you. Just kind of your thoughts on Sunday.
This is one of those games that it's really hard to come on this podcast and talk about because, like you said, there are no positives to be taken away from what happened on Sunday. I think the most disappointing thing that I literally had the realization of this morning is that they had 10 days to get this thing righted after Kansas City, and to lose in a blowout to Jacksonville was just extremely disappointing and disheartening. And we knew Justin obviously wasn't going to be 100%. He's probably not going to be 100%, as Staley alluded, for some time, because this is just one of those injuries that just kind of lingers. And obviously as a quarterback, you're going to get hit at certain times in the game. So you know that he's not 100%, but I think I was just most disappointed in the defense. And obviously, sure, you lose Joey 100%. He goes out and he's a difference maker. And this whole season, off season, all we've talked about is the impact of Bosa and Mack. And I was talking to you yesterday about this. Leading into this game, I was listening to Sirius XM NFL radio, and one of their shows was talking about this team needs to have Bosa and Mack come off the edge and just affect Trevor Lawrence and get to him. Well, when you lose 50% of that, it makes it tough with the other half to have an impact. But I think it was just really just a bummer to go out, especially after some rest. And, you get guys hopefully healthy, but then you have the litany of injuries that happened yesterday. And as someone who's been with this team now for 9 seasons, that was a tough one. That was a really, really tough one because it made me think back in 2015. I think the Chargers had the most players on injured reserve of any team in the league. And it just felt like week after week you're getting hits. And these were hits to big guys. These were hits to big players, especially when you talk about Bosa and Rashawn Slater. But it's just tough. I mean, it's you can give the spin that it's week 3, obviously, and there's a whole heck of a lot of season to play. But this is a really hard one, and seeing how this team responds is going to be huge in terms of how they potentially can turn this around.
Yeah, Eric, we talk about injuries, and all the guys that I listed, man, a lot of them were on that top 100 list, right? Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, J.C. Jackson, Corey Linsley, Rashawn Slater. So, I mean, these are big dudes that are out at this point. But taking that away, just the execution, I believe, in all 3 phases, the Jags outplayed the Chargers from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, outplayed them, outcoached them, out everything them. I mean, it was. I think you said it. There's really no positives from yesterday, and I think at least I could kind of tell early, like the first 5-10 minutes of the game, there was no juice from the team at all. In the early turnover, it didn't help. But when the offense punt twice and then turns the ball over on their next 2 drives, and after 4 drives, you're looking at no points. I think after it took till the early of the second quarter before the offense even got their first down. And I did not expect 38-10. I don't think any of us did, but you could tell maybe early in the first 10 minutes of the game, like, okay, like something seems a little off here. And then, in the second half, it just kind of spiraled out of control. Chris, you mentioned time of possession. I thought the defense actually, if there is a small positive, I thought the defense gave them a chance early by limiting them to field goals. They were, I think, 0 for 3 on goal-to-go situations. So you think, okay, maybe they're going to have a chance. Maybe, it's just a slow start. They're going to get going. But it was just off. It was just an off day. And I think all of us have been around the NFL long enough to know that off days happen, but not like that. Like that, it was just bad. It was bad. And I actually had talked to, Hayley, you mentioned the 10-day break. I kind of wondered that internally. Okay, you're coming off 2 AFC West games to start the year, a lot of hype, and then you have such a long layoff to week 3. How is this team going to look? And I talked to Morgan Fox on Friday, and I'm like, hey man, you've been around, you're a veteran. How do you tell the younger guys that there are no easy games, right? Because Jacksonville, one thing we haven't mentioned, they had lost 18 road games in a row. They hadn't won on the road until the end of the 2019 season. It was
right.
It was a long streak. And he said, yeah, like there are no easy games. Like if you think you can just walk out and win, then you're kidding yourself. And part of me wondered if that's what the Chargers thought they could do. I think the Jaguars are a much improved team. I think nationally, people think of them as a team that only win, 1 or 2 or 3 games a year. And now they have 2 wins, and the Chargers only have 1. And yeah, it was a slap in the face. No positives. And yeah, like you, Hayley, I wrote about it last night, but how is the team going to respond? Because they're 1-2, and now they got back-to-back road games coming up. Like it's a test early on.
And guys, I look at the injuries. Corey Linsley and Keenan Allen, perhaps the 2 most important players on the field for a quarterback, especially Justin Herbert, right? Those guys are out. I said before the game that they had to establish a running game for the first time this season. 12 carries, 26 yards. Austin Eckler, 4 carries, 5 yards. Sony Michel, 5 for 22. Josh Kelly only had 1 carry in this game, 1 for -3 yards, I think, at the end of the game. So clearly there's a problem running the football right now. And I just wonder, we were so high on Isaiah Spiller in the preseason, and I believe he's healthy now. I wonder if you see him this week or here in the near future, because that was a guy that I think everybody identified as somebody who could be the complement to Austin Eckler. Right now, they need much more than that. They just need a running game to help out their quarterback, and perhaps Isaiah Spiller can help out there.
Yeah,
Jalen Guyton suffered an injury. I know Coach Staley is going to speak on all these injuries later today. Josh Palmer had a nice game, 6 for 99. Mike Williams, 1 catch for 15 yards. That's a problem too. They got to get Mike involved much more, similar to what they did in KC. And then, defensively, I think Jacksonville, just the quick game, I think kind of caught the Chargers off guard a little bit. And, last week when they shut out the Colts, it's early in an NFL season, so you don't really know what to make of any of these teams. I'll say this. I thought Jacksonville was impressive last week against the Colts. They look like a complete football team to me. Like, their defense was pretty awesome yesterday. Their offense is very balanced with Etienne and Robinson, and then Zay Jones and Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. And Trevor Lawrence finally has competent coaching at the quarterback position, and it shows. So that's a team that, when the schedule comes out and you do your win-loss, don't do that anymore. And use this as a textbook example as to why not to do that anymore, Hayley.
Yeah, these are not the Jags of years past. That's been the adage that we've heard all week, right? And I think the three of us can sit here on Monday morning and go, yeah, they're not. They're not. They actually might be a good team. They're leading the AFC South right now. They might actually make noise. Their defense is no joke. They had 6 takeaways as of last week, 6 takeaways through 2 games. They had 9 all of 2021. Now they have 8. So they're no joke. And they put the pressure on the Chargers all day. And I think the one thing, I talked about actually up top about how disappointing the Chargers defense was. But in speaking to the offense, now I might go back and revert and change my mind, because the offense was not changed. Nothing really from this Chargers offense, besides really the addition of Gerald Everett and adding Zion on the offensive line, is different compared to last year. And so when you look at the production that they had last year and you compare it to this year, now again, I know Keenan was out and all of that, and the Chargers were missing pieces on the offensive line, but Brandon Staley said it has been really, really difficult to establish any sort of offensive rhythm. And why? Just why is that the case when so many, the cast of characters remains largely unchanged? And I think that's something that this team is going to have to figure out and going to have to answer over these next few weeks. Because when you talk about the running back, like you mentioned it, all offseason we're talking about who's going to be running back, the backup running back number 2. Who's number 1 right now? Who is going to take on this load? Because unfortunately, Austin, it's not working right now. Whatever is happening up front, it's not working, and they need to get it done, because also you have a quarterback who's got an injury that, again, is probably going to linger, and you need to take the pressure off of him when it comes to not having him. I know you mentioned it, that drive was all Justin throwing, that touchdown drive. It can't be like that every week.
No, it can't. And I said 33 yards. Austin actually had 53 yards. I think he had 48 receiving. But 4 carries for 5 yards, Eric. I mean, we can keep saying it, but I think we got to see it. That running game has to come alive at some point. You hope you get Corey Linsley back sooner than later, and you can start to churn some yards on the ground.
And the thing is, the running game had been in focus for the wrong reasons in the first 2 weeks of the season. And then it got worse. I mean, yesterday was the worst of the 3 performances. Only 2.2 yards a carry. And so, I don't know. It's weird because on paper, right, and I know games aren't won on paper, but or maybe in theory, it looks like it should work. The Chargers have talent on the line. Eckler's not a bad back. There's good blockers. In theory, it should work. So I don't know why it's not. And I don't really know why the offense isn't clicking at all. Like I said earlier with the whole vibe of the team yesterday, but something just feels off with that unit. There's not as many deep passes as maybe I expected to see. Coming here to as a new guy here, I thought this was going to be this chuck it down the field and all that. And I know injuries have played a part in that. There was a point in the game yesterday, I'm trying to remember what quarter it was, but the Chargers were moving, and they had just had a big play, and then the next play was the reverse to DeAndre that lost, I think, 5 or 6 yards. And I think maybe they got a field goal out of the drive. It wasn't a touchdown, obviously, because, there was only one. And it's like why are we going backwards? If it's a big play, keep pushing the pace. And I don't know if they're not as aggressive. I don't know. It's I think there's a lot of questions that we're trying to figure out right now. And Chris, one thing I wanted to go back on that you mentioned was the quick game from Lawrence. I actually had wrote about that on Friday. I looked it up for NFL Next Gen stats last week, and he only throws deep 2 or 3 times a game. Him throwing past 20 yards is a rarity, really, at least through the first 2 weeks of the season. And it was the same way yesterday. There's only maybe 2 or 3 passes that traveled past 20 yards. He gets rid of the ball so quick. And I figure if I'm able to notice that, you think the coaches and the players would be aware of that too going into the game. And it's like they had no answer for it. You got guys playing 7-8 yards off the line, and it's a quick pass for, a 3-yard out, and he gets 6 yards. All they have to do is just dink and dunk their way down the field, and that's exactly what they did. And 75 plays, that adds up, and by the end, the defense was just gassed.
Yeah, first, I think you got to give Doug Peterson a ton of credit. I mean, he's a Super Bowl winning coach.
Sure.
He had a great game plan, and he's been a masterful play caller throughout his career in the NFL. Clearly Justin is not 100%. I mean, he 25 of 45, 297, a touchdown, and a pick that went off of Sony Michel. So really not his fault, that interception. It's very hard, I think, to give the offense, especially yesterday, a fair shake, knowing that the signal caller is in a lot of pain. And this is a tricky injury, and this is something that feels like it's going to linger beyond this Sunday and the next Sunday and the next Sunday. So I think it puts the team in a very interesting situation in terms of what do you do? How do you work around Justin's discomfort? We've talked about it. I mean, getting the running game going would be number one for me, and hopefully getting some guys back. But you can't count on getting all of these guys back. So, Hayley, I guess Sunday in Houston, a place that they could not win in December last year, the worst loss of 2021, a chance to get right and get to 2-2. We're talking about this game, and it was a tough game. There are 14 games left, so there's a lot of time to get it right, but it's got to get right starting Sunday.
It has to, and this is a place that Chargers fans, oh Lord, when you saw it on the schedule, you're like, we'll be good, and going into Houston, and now you have to win this game in Houston, and you fall further below 500. The Texans are a frisky team. I know this is like a phrase that we kind of like, but they are. They're 0-2-1, but their two losses have been one-score losses. They hung tough with the Broncos, and they hung tough yesterday with Chicago, who I believe won on a walk-off field goal. So they're not messing around. And I think what we saw last year in that late December game, which again was, you could dub it the COVID game. There were a lot of injuries, but yet Herbert was there. He was the starting quarterback. And I think it just shows you, again, kind of like these Jags, you can't discount anyone in the NFL, and these teams are going to hang around, and these teams are going to play tough, and you can't, just kind of lay down. So you have to get it right this week, but just because you have a team that's 0-2-1, I wouldn't discount their record right now at all, and I would go into it knowing you have to get this right and you have to turn it around.
Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just fascinated to see how it goes. Like, it's only Monday, and like I can't wait for Sunday to see how the team responds, good or bad. Like, I don't know. Like, you always hear, the phrase, like, tough times don't last, tough people do. And I'm sure we're going to hear a bunch of, cliches all week.
It's like a bumper sticker, Eric.
Yeah. I've heard it all. So yeah, I mean, I want to get to Sunday and see how they do. Like, the team has to put the work in to get there for sure. One thing we haven't mentioned yet, and that was that after the game in the locker room, Sebastian Joseph Day led a player. He kind of led the post game speech. I think that's important. Because this is Bass. This is his first year here, but he's a leader. He's the captain. It falls on everyone, for sure. It falls on everyone to get it turned around, but it's on the players. And the coach, it's on everyone. I'm not going to say it's on one more than the other. Like I said, I'm just fascinated to see how the team responds, because there was so much hype with the team coming into the year. And, I think Tom Telesco said in the preseason, he's like, it's not one on paper. I'm tired of the hype. Like, it's time for us to go prove it. And through 3 games, they haven't. They're 1-2. Like, they haven't proven anything good, really, because it hasn't been great through 3 games. But how do you respond? How do you bounce back from this? I still think this is a good team. but they have to prove that now, and we'll find out on Sunday.
Chris, can I say one thing?
Yeah, please.
Because I'm going through last year's schedule. This is uncharted territory for this Chargers team under Brandon Staley, right? I don't think they've ever been under 500 before.
That's a good point.
So, because I'm looking at the 2021 record, you teetered, like right above it, pretty much the whole season. Then obviously you went 9-8. But this is, when Eric, you mentioned how are you going to respond? This is a big test because this is new for this team, for this coaching staff, for this regime to figure out how to kind of pull yourself out from being under instead of just sort of treading water. Now you literally have to rise above it.
Yeah, Hayley, it's an excellent point. And, I know that the guys look at it from game to game. I'm almost looking at it from the next 2 weeks on the road, right? At Houston, at Cleveland. I think maybe last week we look at both of those games and say, hey, the Chargers have a good chance to take care of both of those. They're going to be very difficult games. And make no mistake, I think Houston's going to be a difficult game. Cleveland, with their running game and their ability to control the clock and their defense on the road in Cleveland, if this team can get through those 2 road games and get back to above 500 with the Broncos in town Monday Night Football, I think you kind of reset the season, right? But these 2 games, to me, I think are just so crucial to getting the season turned around early, right? Get back to 3-2. You got the Broncos, another AFC West matchup, and you see what happens there. If you beat the Broncos, you're 2-1 in the division, and you get ready for the stretch run. But I'm kind of looking at it from that perspective. Is that yes, Houston is Sunday. That's the focus for the team and the coaches. They're not thinking about Cleveland, but the longer view, I guess here. These next 2 weeks on the road, you got to rally around each other and get the win. And I want to shout out Drew Tranquil, man. I thought he was a complete pro in the locker room, taking the questions, taking accountability for the team, the defense. I loved everything he said, and that's how you do it. He had 12 total tackles in the game, and I just wanted to mention that because I think it's important for the guys to face the music and be accountable, and Drew was awesome yesterday in doing that, representing the team.
That's what you need right now too. You need these leaders, these guys to stand up, and you need them to not only take accountability but hold each other accountable. And I think when we're in the locker room at the end of the day, I'll be honest, I just went to pressers. I didn't even go in the locker room because I just was like not going to deal with this today. But you want answers, and it's hard. It makes your job difficult when, you're not, it's tough, and you obviously don't want to, hit guys when they're down, but to have someone like that, it reminded me a lot of when I was earlier in my Chargers career. Like Eric Weddle was kind of always that guy. Like when bad losses happen, he always had really thoughtful things to say, and you always know you could go to him. And so I'm with you. Credit to Drew on that one, big time.
Yeah, Chris, I'm definitely glad that you brought that up. Shout out to Drew. Like, if we're being honest, there weren't many guys who stood up and talked after that loss. Which I get that you're mad, but I thought there'd be a couple more guys that faced the questions. And like we talked about accountability, I thought there'd be a little bit more of that. So yeah. Just fascinated. It was a terrible loss, but after that, like, okay, let's go. Let's see what happens now.
Yep, and it starts today. Really, Coach Staley will address the media. Hopefully, we'll get a little more clarity on some of these injuries that happened not only in the game but have lingered around this team for the last few weeks, and hopefully slowly get back to as full strength as you could possibly be. And I think with Justin, as far as Justin's concerned, I think this is just going to be a tricky situation. And it really is going to be something where I think for Justin, he's got to do what he can do. He's also got to be smart. And, you just hope that he stays safe on the field throughout this season and can lead this team to some wins. because I know that's what he wants to do. He said he wanted to be out there with his teammates to close the game. And I know that's important to him and it's important to the team. But I want to see the Justin Herbert from last year for a long time in this league. So we'll see how it goes. You guys have any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I think just in summation of what everyone has said, I think, it's on to Houston. It's on to this next couple chunk. As, I like to say, they don't, you mentioned it, they don't look ahead. We can. And it is going to be fascinating, to use a word of Eric's, to see how they respond and how they turn this around and what happens over these next few weeks.
Yep. Eric, final word?
No, I'm good. I have to go grind the tape now.
Go grind the tape. That's going to do it for us, guys. We'll be back next Monday after the Chargers-Texans game. For Hayley and Eric, I'm Chris. We'll see you next time.